Hello, I'm Samantha Nolan-Smith, and this is Lessons in Visibility. In this show, we ask what can be learned from the two faces of visibility. The first involves stepping forward and choosing to be seen and heard. The second opens you up to new ways of seeing and hearing the world around you. Welcome to the show. So today we're going to talk about losing sight of your vision or abandoning it because you're focused on how do I turn this into a business? And part of that work is really making sure you anchor in deeply to your vision. When we jump too quickly to the how, we miss some really important foundational work. So you might have sort of a vague vision or a sense of where you're going, but because you haven't taken the time to really sit with that, feel into it, anchor into the picture of it, then to keep the analogy going, the anchor isn't really firmly in the ocean bed. And so the boat can quickly start moving here, there, and everywhere and doesn't stay in the one place. So that's one thing, having not taken the time to really understand what your vision is, or at least get as clear a picture as you can at this particular point in time. Obviously, once you move into action, the vision unfolds more clearly, and still there needs to be something that you're anchoring into to start. When we go straight to the how will I make the money? How will I turn this into a business? Then we lose our connection to our anchor point, and then we don't really know where we're headed. We try a little bit of this, and we try a little bit of this, and we try a little bit of this, but because we don't have the big picture that's holding the whole thing together, we can very quickly start to get confused, start to lose our way around what we're actually trying to build in the first place. Or we can end up building something we don't actually want to build because we just see, oh, I think this will make money. And then we find ourselves down the track wondering, what was I even thinking? I don't even want this kind of a business. So I'm not saying that the business model is irrelevant. It's obviously not irrelevant. It's obviously very important to the overall sustainability of your vision and your business. All I'm suggesting is just take a moment, take a step back, pause, get clear on the vision first. That helps you have both a what and it anchors you into your values. So you have a why, a purpose for doing this. And most of the time, what happens then also is you end up with your how. Often, once you take the time to get really clear on what your vision is, the business model becomes really obvious. It sort of falls out from there. So vision first. Vision for the business and for how you'll interact with and engage with the business and how it will look for you as the business owner. And then sit back and consider, okay, what's the appropriate business model for this vision? The final thing to give you a tip on there is sometimes we have to just really trust the vision and start stepping toward it in order to see the business model. Many years ago, I was looking for a property to buy. This was in the 90s. And I was going through the newspapers and doing that laborious thing of checking newspapers, cross-checking times, trying to work out, could I get from this place to this place to this property, all, within the space of a couple of hours on a Saturday morning. And I said at the time to my partner, it would be amazing if all of this was on the internet and all in one place. Can you imagine how much easier it would be for everybody? And because I was very young, I was in my early 20s, and I didn't really have the confidence at that point to start my own business, I then let the idea of, well, I would have no idea how to monetize that, shut down the vision. And so I sort of played around with it for a couple of weeks and then thought, I feel really out of my depth. It was all imposter syndrome and lack of confidence and all of that kind of thing. And so rather than just asking myself, well, what would be the first step? And then stepping toward the vision, and then lo and behold, very quickly probably working out advertising. I mean, now, 30 years later, it feels like the most obvious business model in the world, but to my 20-odd-year-old self, it didn't feel obvious. But I do feel that if I had just trusted the vision, stepped toward the vision a little bit, I would have worked that out pretty quickly. So I wanted to share that story in case you're thinking, well, that's all well and good. I've got my vision, Samantha, but I have no idea what to do next. I have no idea how you would ever possibly monetize this. If that's you, if it's not a question of, I don't know what my vision is or I haven't taken the time to really anchor into it, and instead it's, I don't know how to trust this as a possible business, then perhaps take heed from my experience and just ask yourself, what's the next right step? What is the next step? If this were to be a viable business, what would be the next step I would take? Thanks for listening to Lessons in Visibility. If you'd like to connect in other places, come on over to theschoolofvisibility.com. And you can also find us at The School of Visibility on Instagram, Substack, Facebook, and Threads. Lessons in Visibility is produced by the School of Visibility on the land of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people. I acknowledge the peaceful legacy of custodianship that tens of thousands of years of coexistence with the land has bestowed on us all. And I note the visibility journey that remains unfinished. Voice, treaty, truth.